We just moved again. And it is that as far as Buster and I are concerned, with this house moving, we already have 17 in a period of 10 years, which makes an average of one moving every 7 months. So let's see if we stay with our butt still for a while, because my gosh, it started in February 2013 when my offspring and I decided to cross the ocean looking for a dream, or at least I was looking for it. A dream that, by the way, and 10 years later, I still haven't found. But let's go back a bit in time. Not so much. February 2013, an 8-month-old Buster and a 25-year-old Sergio left what was our home in Albal, a small town in Valencia, and we landed in Panama, where an apparently nice family welcomed us upon our arrival, until we found a place to rent. And I say apparently nice because these scoundrels ended up stealing $5,000 from me. Yeah, I will tell you that story someday. We spent a few weeks with those thieves until we ended up in a house for rent in Balboa neighborhood, on the other side of the city. However, the rent was quite expensive and things were not going as well as they seemed that they were going to go. So a few months later, we looked for something cheaper where to end our days in Panama. A nice and tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city. And let's resume our summary in a while, because I don't want to bore anyone with our goings and comings. Well, as many of you know, since we arrived in Costa Rica this last time, the whole family, Rebecca, Balu, Buster and I, we have been living in the in-laws house, who welcome us in the warmest possible way, and where we have been very well. Also, they let us bring rescue dogs home, and in general do and undo whatever we wanted, without giving us a single bad face, not even once. However, as civilized people we are, we don't like to bother, and although Rebe's parents, as I said, have never complained in the slightest, we know that it is not to anyone's liking that someone put dogs at home every week, with the consequent chaos. What does this mean? Because here in the videos you only see the beautiful part, but anyone who has dogs at home knows that it can be a bit of mess. We knew perfectly well that they were never going to be say nothing, but as I say, it is not necessary to make that moment arrive either. So we ventured to rent our space because, in addition, Rebecca and I arrived just married to Costa Rica. And we are not going to deny it, we also really wanted to have our own little love nest. So the moment arrived. And resuming the mini summary of 17 house movings, our time in Panama ended a little over a year after arriving in the country, and then we left to Costa Rica. We are talking about April 2014, and we ended up at a good friend's house who opened her doors for us to stay as long as we needed, until we could rent something, which we did 2 or 3 weeks later, in a place called Lomas de Ayarco, where we were very happy, but we didn't last long, since almost 2 years after my father's death, the inheritance tax hit me, which literally left me with zero in my bank account, and we had to migrate to the cheapest house we found in Alajuelita, a place with a bad reputation, but in which the truth, we didn't have any bad experiences. Months later, I moved in with a girl, but it didn't work out, so I moved again with 2 friends to a house very close to there. Later, we got together, the 3 of us went to another house in Alajuela, where I stayed for other months, and from there to what will be my last place in my first Costa Rican period. Let's continue with the summary in a while. As I was saying, the time to leave Rebecca's parents' house came, but we were not going to have it easy. Rebecca and I recently bought a car, what we are obviously paying for. We also got involved in a savings plan when we got to Costa Rica to be able to buy a house someday, and at the same time I continued to pay for the house that I bought in Spain in 2019. So our economic capacity did not allow us to rent a house with a large garden and without limitations regarding the possession of animals, since the idea it was to be able to continue bringing dogs home without bothering anyone other than ourselves. But we came across a harsh reality, and that is that with the budgets we managed, we couldn't find anything beyond
only one small dog alone.
So after a lot of searching, we finally found a small house that was within our budget, but more importantly, that accepted 2 dogs. the ones we now have, Buster and Bonnie. So this was the chosen house, having to live very much to our regret, Candy with the in-laws. And I say very much to our regret because we would have loved to bring her with us. And maybe at some point we can bring her here. But of course, they told us that a maximum of 2 dogs, and logically we are not going to put Candy in as well when we just arrive at the house. But it gives us a lot of peace that she continues to be like a queen at Rebecca's parents' house. And likewise, we are going to continue seeing her a lot because we are going to continue getting together, almost weekly. Without going any further, next week is Rebecca's dad's birthday and we are going to be there. However, I'm going to keep trying everything to find a beautiful home for that dog because I really don't understand how it is possible that Candy still hasn't found an ideal family. That really doesn't fit in my head. As I mentioned in the summary, that little house in Alajuela was the last one I lived in before returning to Spain in April 2017, where we returned to live in the same house we left 4 years ago. I stayed there for a long time, a little more than a year, until a good friend rented me a small house inside his big house. Despite the fact that some repairs had to be made, I was very interested because Buster would have the whole plot for himself. And in the house where we were, he had nothing garden. So after making some upgrades, we made the treehouse very comfy. However, in a rather surreal way, I ended up living in a damn luxury house very close to there, but that was for a very short period. I don't remember if I even made it to 3 months of being there, and I returned back to the little house where we had made the arrangement. I have to say that from the moment I found out that I was going to return to Spain from Costa Rica in 2017, I began to look at houses for sale almost every week, with the hope of one day being able to have my own home and stop for a damn time my butt still. And that's when, in July 2019, I found her. A beautiful house in a beautiful area on the outskirts of Valencia with pretty things to fix, everything is safe, but with a price that I simply couldn't pass up the opportunity. So I was looking with all my energy for a bank to grant me the mortgage until 5 months later, specifically on December 24th, I officially signed the purchase of which, according to me, it will be my definitive home where I will put down roots. Poor dreamer. It was then when Rebecca, whom I had met in Costa Rica in 2016, came to Spain on vacation on Christmas 2019. In fact, she herself helped me with the moving to the house I just bought, but when the time came for her to return to Costa Rica, we were totally in love with each other. So, skipping the long and hasty pandemic love story, we will conclude this summary with the return of Rebecca to that house 1 year later, January 2021, so that almost another year later, November 2021, we move again to Costa Rica, so that another 15 months later have the 17th house moving of Buster and me to this new house, the one we just settled in, Rebecca, Bonnie, Buster, and me. As I say, it is not the house that we would have liked to rent, although we like it a lot, but it is not appropriate for us to rescue animals as we would like to be able to do it. But simply, we are not there yet. At this moment, we can't afford something bigger, so we hope to continue growing so that hopefully sooner rather than later, we can have an adequate space to be able to help much more. And you will wonder how you are going to do now if you can't have more dogs at home. Believe me, it is something that I've also been thinking about a lot these days, and the truth is that I have several ideas. Different video formats are coming, some new and others old. Because just as we did before, we were going to a shelter and film beautiful videos of beautiful dogs to be able to find families for them. Well, now we have that much easier, and it turns out that this house is much closer to that shelter than the house where we used to live in. And just because we can't have more dogs in this house doesn't mean we can't bring 1 or 2 from time to time for a while. So that is going to be a type of video that we are going to be able to pick up and continue making. Find good adoptive families for abandoned doggies. As for the new video formats I have in mind, which I'm sure you'll love, I need you to let me refine the ideas a bit more and finish shaping them, but I assure you, you are going to like them a lot. We are going to get creative so that we can continue helping while we create interesting content for you so that you can join us in each video, and so that as far as possible, you also collaborate with us to be part of the change. Thank you very much for spending a few minutes of your time with us. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like what we do, and see you very soon.